The Mississippi Delta, early 1970s. Sunlight burns across flat cotton fields, the air thick with heat and memory. Here, surrounded by miles of farmland and silence, stands one of the most notorious prisons in American history, Parchman Penitentiary. It isn't just a prison, it's a legacy of pain, a place where time doesn't pass, it grinds people down. Officially known as the Mississippi State Penitentiary, Parchman was modeled after a plantation and operated like one. Inmates, many of them black men convicted under dubious circumstances, were forced to work the fields under armed guard. There were no fences, just the open land, barbed wire at the edges, and the constant threat of violence for anyone who dared to step out of line. Inside the prison's red brick walls, the smell of sweat, earth, and despair hung in the air like smoke. It was here that Eli Turner, inmate number 39,147, served a life sentence for armed robbery and second-degree murder, a crime he insisted was a robbery gone wrong, not a killing he intended. But whether guilty or not, the state had made up its mind. At 26 years old, Eli had already spent 6 years inside the brutal compound. But unlike many who gave up on life beyond the walls, Eli had a secret. Hidden beneath his bunk mattress was a notebook filled with characters, story fragments, and ideas. Hundreds of pages written in cramped pencil script. Eli dreamed of becoming a crime novelist. He read every paperback that passed through the prison library, from Raymond Chandler to Chester Himes. He scribbled in the margins, studied their structure, and imagined himself on the outside, signing books instead of being counted in lineups. Some inmates called him the professor, others thought he was crazy. But Eli was neither. He was patient, focused, watching everything. In the evenings, when others played cards or fought over nothing, Eli sat alone on the edge of his cot, writing about men who planned impossible things, robberies, disappearances, and yes, prison escapes. He mapped them out like puzzles, testing the logic, imagining the guards' routines, even drawing diagrams of locks and keys. To the guards, he was just another quiet inmate. To himself, he was preparing, not just a book, but an exit. What made Parchman so terrifying was not just the violence, it was the invisibility. Once you went in, the world forgot you. But Eli refused to be forgotten. He would leave, not as a number, but as a name, and it would all begin with a story, one no one believed could come true. Eli Turner understood early on that escaping from Parchman wasn't about brute force. It was about patterns, routine, repetition, predictability. And the one thing a place like Parchman had in abundance was routine. For months, he watched everything. The guards' shift changes, their smoke breaks, the timing of the kitchen carts, and the slow crawl of the laundry van through the gates every Thursday morning. He memorized it all. Like clockwork, the guards switched posts at exactly 2 p.m. and again at 10 p.m. One guard, Harris, always took a 10-minute nap during the midnight shift behind the tower's blacked-out windows. Another, McKee, had a habit of slipping outside for a cigarette right after evening head count, leaving his post unattended for 4 to 6 minutes. Eli didn't write any of this down, not where anyone could find it. Instead, he carried it all in his head, running drills in his mind like a chess player rehearsing gambits. Every night before bed, he mentally walked through the yard, tested the timing, imagined himself moving through the shadows. He also started making quiet alliances. Not the loud, dangerous types with power in the yard. Those men were too visible, too volatile. Eli turned instead to the overlooked inmates. Clyde, a wiry maintenance worker with keys to half the compound, and Johnny Ray, a half-blind dishwasher who used to be a locksmith. Eli offered them stories, jokes, hand-rolled smokes, small things. But in prison, small things matter. Trust is earned, not given. He also played the long game with one of the guards, Officer Wynn. An older man nearing retirement, Wynn was quieter than the others and had once served in Vietnam. Over time, Eli shared bits of his novel in progress. "It's about a guy who escapes prison," he'd say with a half-smile, letting Wynn read a page or two. The officer scoffed, but kept reading. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe boredom, but a crack had opened. And Eli knew. Cracks are how walls fall. Every detail he gathered became a piece of the puzzle. Every routine observed, every conversation, every inch of unguarded hallway, it all added up. The prison might have been a fortress, but even fortresses had blind spots. And Eli Turner was getting ready to slip right through one. Parchman wasn't a place that allowed for hope or tools. Everything sharp, heavy, or useful was locked up, monitored, or banned outright. But Eli Turner had never relied on what was given. He focused on what could be taken, shaped, repurposed, or built in plain sight. His first tool was a file, stolen in parts. Clyde, the maintenance worker, helped by leaving a broken mop handle near Eli's workstation. Inside it, embedded beneath layers of old tape, was a 6-inch strip of metal, rough, jagged, but usable. Over time, Eli sharpened it on the concrete floor under his bunk, slow and quiet, until it could saw through rusted hinges or thin bars. Next came a makeshift key, crafted from a bent spoon. Johnny Ray, the nearly blind dishwasher, still had memories from his locksmith days, fingers that remembered better than his eyes. Under the pretense of cleaning utensils, Johnny guided Eli as he carved the ridges, mimicking the guardroom's side door key. It was far from perfect, but Johnny's memory and Eli's patience were enough to shape it into something close. But tools alone weren't enough. Eli needed timing, coordination, and silence. He created code words that blended into daily conversation. The preacher's coming meant the hallway was clear. Cornbread's burnt signaled a delay. A cough followed by 2 knocks on the pipe meant Wynne, his most dangerous variable, was on duty and not to be trusted that night. The guards never noticed. Most of them didn't listen when inmates spoke, assuming everything they said was meaningless noise. That was their first mistake. Still, not everyone was eager to help. Clyde especially was hesitant. "Man, I got 2 more years," he whispered once. "I'm not about to throw that away for your dream." Eli didn't push. Instead, he offered something more powerful than persuasion, a way out that didn't involve running. Clyde wouldn't break any laws. Just leave the mop closet unlocked one night. Just forget to log 1 tool. Small favors, small cracks. Eventually, Clyde agreed, with a warning. "You get caught. You don't know me." "I don't know anyone," Eli replied, steady. "This is all fiction anyway, right?" With tools hidden in hollowed-out books, signals passed between whispers and glances, and the groundwork laid, Eli wasn't just planning an escape anymore. He was rehearsing it, one quiet, dangerous step at a time. June 11th. Moonless. Still. The kind of southern night where sweat clings to your skin and every sound cuts like a razor. Eli Turner lay on his cot, eyes wide open, heart pounding so hard he could feel it in his teeth. At exactly 10:02 p.m., the guard shift changed. McKee, the smoker, was posted at the West Tower, where he'd vanish for his nightly cigarette in exactly 13 minutes. That was the window. Clyde had done his part. The mop closet door was left cracked, just like they'd rehearsed. Inside, behind a loose tile, Eli had hidden his tools, the filed metal strip, the spoon key, and a bundle of rags to quiet his steps. He moved fast but silent, ducking into the laundry corridor and slipping behind the unused dryer. A small vent, no larger than a school locker, waited above him. The screws were already loosened, thanks to 2 weeks of patient nighttime work. With trembling hands, he pried the panel free and crawled inside. The duct was narrow, hot, and loud, metal expanding and creaking with every movement. He belly-crawled inch by inch, the metal scraping his shirt, sweat blinding him. Every clink of metal felt like a thunderclap. Once, he stopped, dead still, as voices passed below. 2 guards talking sports, oblivious. At the end of the shaft, Eli kicked free another panel and dropped into a dim supply room near the outer corridor. He waited, breathed, then crept out into the hallway. The spoon key shook slightly in his hand as he slipped it into the lock on the side gate. It didn't work, at first. 3 turns, jiggle, silence, click. He eased the gate open. Now the yard. the most exposed part. The night watchtower's spotlight swept across in slow arcs. He dropped to his belly and Army crawled through the grass, counting the seconds between sweeps. 12. Long enough. At the far end, the fence. He retrieved the filed strip from his waistband and began cutting. Sparks danced as metal met metal. He paused with every gust of wind or shout in the distance. 2 minutes felt like 20. Finally, the opening. Eli crawled through and into the blackness of the cotton fields. No alarms, no shouting, just open night. Behind him, Parchman stood quiet, unaware, for now, that a man with a dream had just disappeared into the dark. The Mississippi Delta by night is an ocean of shadow, flat, endless, and treacherous. Eli Turner moved through it like a ghost, crouched low between rows of cotton and soy, the prison lights shrinking behind him until they vanished into the humid dark. His legs ached, his arms shook, but he kept going. Freedom wasn't a feeling yet. It was just movement. Forward, always forward. He had no map, no flashlight, just a stolen compass from a broken sewing kit and the North Star to guide him. His plan was rough. Reach the train tracks 14 miles west of Parchman, follow them to Yazoo City, and from there, he hadn't thought that far. Maybe a freight train, maybe disappear into a crowd. By dawn, Eli had made it 6 miles. His shirt clung to him, soaked with sweat and swamp dew. Mosquitoes bit his face and neck without mercy. He slipped into a drainage culvert to rest. Slept 2 hours with one eye open. Every sound, an engine, a dog's bark, a shout in the distance, snapped him upright. Hunger hit next. By day 2, he was chewing wild grass, sucking dew off leaves. He found half a sandwich in a gas station dumpster just off Highway 49, barely managing to crawl past a rusted fence line to get it. His stomach burned. He couldn't tell if it was relief or rot, but he kept moving. At dusk on the 3rd day, he heard the distant groan of a freight train, metal wheels on ancient tracks. Heart racing, Eli limped toward the sound and reached the tracks just as the engine passed. He waved, stupidly, instinctively, and of course, it didn't stop. But he followed it, half running, half stumbling. 10 miles later, in the early hours before dawn, the train slowed at a switching yard. Eli climbed into an open grain car and collapsed inside, burying himself beneath musty tarp and corn dust. He rode for hours, then days. At some point, he crossed into Arkansas, then Missouri. Each mile stretched the distance between him and the prison he'd vanished from. And when the train finally stopped for good, Eli stepped out into a new world. Not a hero, not a fugitive legend, just a man with a notebook and a second chance. Freedom, at last, was real. For almost 2 years, Eli Turner's name was whispered across prison yards and courthouse hallways, like a ghost story. The man who vanished from Parchman, no alarms, no gunshots, no body ever found, just an empty cot and a clean break. The official investigation produced nothing but dead ends. No one was ever charged as an accomplice. Clyde was quietly transferred to another facility. Johnny Ray died 6 months later of pneumonia. Officer Wynn retired the following spring. But Eli, he was gone. A phantom swallowed by the roads and rails of the South. And then, in 1981, a book appeared. It wasn't a bestseller. It didn't make headlines. But tucked in the corner shelves of indie bookshops and libraries was a slim paperback titled Red Earth Run, credited to E.T. James. A prison escape novel, taut, quiet, beautifully written. It told the story of a man locked away in the deep South, who escapes not just the walls around him but the identity forced upon him. Critics called it strangely intimate and hauntingly plausible. The author never did interviews, no photos, no tours, just a P.O. box in Kansas City and a second novel 2 years later, Sleepers in the Tall Grass, which followed a similar tone, stories about survival, dignity, and the long road to redemption. Was E.T. James really Eli Turner? No one could prove it. But those who'd known him, those still alive, didn't need to. The voice on the page was unmistakable, careful, observant, filled with pain, yes, but also with grace. In time, the world forgot about the details of the escape. Parchman restructured, new security, new systems. But the legend of Eli Turner became more than just a prison break. It became a symbol of what a man can do when the world takes everything but his mind, his will, and his words. His story wasn't about revenge or glory. It was about quiet resilience, about daring to dream when the system is built to crush you, about carving hope out of concrete. Eli didn't escape to run. He escaped to write, to live, to prove he was more than a number. And in the end, that's exactly what he did.